Hey guys, I'm IzDaisho and I'm here bringing you Return to Ravnica set review, and now we are finally getting started on Green. So I am just going to go briefly introduce my co-hosts.
I'm Garub.
And Andrew.
And when I say I'm going to do that, I mean they're going to do that themselves. And now let's get started. So first card in Green is Aerial Predation. Aerial Predation is 2 and a green, it's in common and it's an instant. It reads, destroy target creature with flying, you gain 2 life. I'm pretty sure that this is going to be like all of the other destroy target creature with flying. It's going to act the exact same thing as Plummet, where you're pretty happy to sideboard it. If you need to, you can main deck it, but not really preferable. And I don't really think that there's much else to say about that. Do you guys think anything?
There's not much else to say.
It's just a really good sideboard card.
Yeah. All right. So we definitely don't need to prioritize picking these up, but you can do it later on. Alright, anyway, Archweaver, 5 green for a 5/5 reach trample. It's an uncommon, and obviously it's a spider since it's got reach, but yeah, I mean, this card's okay. It's not like it's a 7-cost card that's going to win you the game or anything, but it'll probably be annoying for your opponents to deal with, and like a 5/5 trample is fine, but I don't think it's going to see much play. What do you guys?
I mean, it's okay, but other than that, I mean, it's important in the fact that it has reach, and there are a bunch of other 7 drops in green that are just vanilla. I mean, we'll see one very soon, that just don't have reach and therefore can't deal with green's biggest enemy, which are going to be flying decks, as they always are.
Just main deck your Aerial Predations. I'd rather do that than playing Archweaver.
This one
I completely agree with you.
This one seems really weird to me because reach is such a defensive thing and trample is an offensive thing, and it's weird to have it on the same dude. He doesn't really know what he wants to be doing.
Yeah.
But if you give him +2/+2 in trample, then he becomes and vigilance. +2/+2 in vigilance, then he becomes awesome.
Yeah, then he's ridiculously good.
But other than that, he's okay. And if your deck really needs a giant 7-drop finisher, sure. There's only 6 other 7-drops or so in this format.
Alright, so now the next card that might actually help you cast that, Axebane Guardian. It's 2 and a green, it has Defender, and it's a common. It's a 0/3, and its ability reads, add X mana in any combination of colors to your mana pool, where X is the number of creatures with Defender you control. And there's a couple more creatures in white with Defender, or in green rather, I think maybe just one, but it's fine. Like I mean, it's a little bit late to be casting your ramp spells. A 0/3 is fine because it can actually still block all the 2-power guys, which there's a lot of. So it might get some work done blocking, and you never know. Maybe it'll help you if you're trying to build like a 3-color deck. It could definitely fix you pretty well. So I don't know. There's just.
I actually like this card a lot, just for the simple fact that it is color fixing, and color fixing is supremely important in multicolor limited formats such as this, or Shards of Alara, or original Ravnica. And back then, people still played in limited. People still highly picked 3-cost mana fixers. I'm forgetting the names currently, but
not to mention the fact that these guys are at common and they will stack with each other very nicely.
Oh, that's very true.
I mean,
in that case, they become good ramp. But without the fact, just ignoring the fact that you can use it as ramp, the most important part is that it fixes your colors and allows you to mix green with any other color.
Right, yeah. If you want to build a 3-color deck, then in one of them based on green, then I definitely think that this card is going to be pretty good.
And if you want to go all in, I wouldn't suggest this, but it is a possibility in every multicolored set. This has been a possibility. Just take the best card in every pack, regardless of color, and make sure to take a bunch of these guys and a bunch of other color fixing. You can get a 5-color deck going. It will be inconsistent, but it is possible to do, and if you want to do it, this guy's going to be your best friend.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's okay, but I don't think I'm going to be taking them early. There's definitely a lot of other cards that I'd rather have, and maybe it's just my inexperience with a format with all this multicolor, and like fixing is really a lot more important than I think it is. But I think that at 3 mana, by then the game's already started. It's already in the middle of the game, and by then getting your fixing is like, okay, well now I can get started, but you already cast 3 spells, so I don't know. It's good though.
Especially helpful for splashing some bombs in other colors, because a lot of the bombs are higher costing, and this guy...
Especially other removal, because green's kind of lacking in that.
That's very true. Green needs removal.
Alright, Axebane stack, 6 and a green, 6/7. That's pretty much it. I'd rather a 5/5 reach trample for sure.
I completely agree with that.
Yep.
A 6/7 really isn't going to do you much, and it's 7 mana. I mean, nobody played Sarah Avatar in And I mean nobody. I've never seen that card cast. I know it. I've heard stories that somebody's cast it, but
I saw it once. It then died because its controller died.
But that guy could be like a 20/20, and nobody played it. It's just too much mana to not have any relevant abilities. All right, let's move on to the next card, which is an uncommon, 1 in a green for a 3/1 Vigilance. It's I did say it's an uncommon, but this card I think is pretty good. Whenever you can get more power than toughness, that's really useful. More power than mana cost, I mean, is just pretty useful. And like just being able to beat in for 3 is just, it sounds pretty powerful.
I love that it has Vigilance, because you can beat in for 3, and if your opponent, like let's say this guy didn't have Vigilance, you could beat in for 3, and your opponent could be like, all right, I can trade here, or I can get in myself. But this guy, you get to beat in for 3, and then he's a good body to make a trade with. It's rare to see creatures that have low toughness like this and have Vigilance, but when they do, and when they're at a really aggressively costed for their power, they can make for some serious limited role players for decks.
Yeah, and like you can never really go wrong with this card, because the worst it's ever going to do is like trade with a bear. I mean, every once in a while it'll trade with a 1/1 soldier or something like that, and you're just going to be upset. But generally, you'll trade with some other card, and you'll get your value out of it.
Just try not to hit Fencing Ace.
Trades with a Concordia Pegasus. Okay, Centaur's
Someone had to say it.
Centaur's Herald. It's a green for a common. It's an elf scout, and its ability reads, it's a 0/1 itself, and its ability reads 2 in a green, sacrifice Centaur's Herald, put a 3/3 green Centaur creature token onto the battlefield. I love this card. I mean, there's not really much I want to be doing on turn 1, so I just drop this guy turn 1, ideally. Obviously, you could draw it later in the game, and then it's still pretty good, because you can just pay the 4 mana. And then you can chump block turn 3 and sacrifice it, make a 3/3. You can just make it so that they can't attack and just do it at end step. If you have something else to do with your mana, you can do it then. It's basically, but pretty much how I value this card is it's a Centaur Courser, which is something that I value pretty highly, and I think that it's good. It's 1 green, both of its costs. So obviously, if you play it like turn 4, it would be 2 green to make a 3/3, which is not really what you want to be doing. But if you can play this guy turn 1, then there's really no downside.
I would value this a little bit higher than Centaur Courser, just because you have an extra chump block in it. The fact that it is a token is very relevant in the green-white deck. If you just had a Centaur Courser, then you can't, populate that guy. Again, you can be bounced for killed, but I still think this guy's a little bit stronger, and also because you can get out that 3/3 body instantly.
Yeah, I mean, but they can see it, so it's not like really a combat trick.
I agree.
It is an on-board trick, but even then, it's really good. I like it a lot. I just enjoy Centaur Coursers.
Yeah, I'm gonna be taking about as many of these as I can and just jamming them all into my deck and be happy about it. All right, next card, Chorus of Might, 3 in a green, instant, common. Until end of turn, target creature gets +1/+1 for each creature you control and gains trample. I don't really know how to evaluate this card, so I'm gonna let you guys take it.
I have a history of liking Pump that costs a little bit more mana than Pump normally does. I have a history of liking that a little bit too much. That said, this one seems really good. The fact that you get to pump one of your the fact that you're getting to pump one of your creatures for a lot usually, because usually you'll be swinging with a bunch of your guys, and they'll block, and you could just pump the one that's unblocked. But this thing also gives trample, which means you can pump one of the things that is blocked, still get your extra damage in, and have your guy live through combat, unlike many other pump spells in the past that have dealt with the number of creatures that you control.
Right.
Which definitely, in my mind, makes it worth like a few extra mana.
I mean,
It's a good
I know
finisher for, like,
I'm
a
fine.
token strategy.
I'm fine having it cost like 1 more mana, but often I think Giant Growth is just going to be giving you more power.
Sure.
And it's 3 mana less. Like, that's huge. That means that, like, if you have a Giant Growth, you can basically play on curve, play 1 less mana spell than. But this card is going to be your entire turn when you play it.
Yeah, this
I wouldn't consider it to be a pump spell. I'd consider it more of like a finisher, like a weaker overrun style finisher.
But this guy seems so much less consistent than I want a pump spell to be.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you're behind and you need that pump spell to do something, this card does absolutely nothing for you. This card is, if you already are in a fairly good position, it helps you win.
Well, it's really just if it also just destroys board stalls. If you've got 7 creatures out and you're like, attack, and then they just block with something better than it, you're like, okay, kill you and deal 4 to you. But
good.
I mean, that seems pretty good, but I think that's the best case, and you're not really going to have that best case so often. I think it's going to be good, but I don't think it's going to be something that I'm like, yeah, I want to jam a couple of Chorus of Mites in my deck. But if I have one in a really heavy populate tokens deck, then I probably won't be too upset. Alright, so let's move on to the next card. This one's a rare, which sucks because I want to be playing this card so much, but
incredible.
Like, yeah, it's a 2 green for a 5/5, and it has Scavenge 4 green. So it's just a gigantic creature. 4 mana for a 5/5 is crazy good.
Deadbridge Goliath.
Oh, it's called Deadbridge Goliath. Sorry.
So let me understand this. It's a 4 mana 5/5, right? So that already seems really good.
Absurd.
And if it somehow dies before they die, it gets to put 5 +1/+1 counters, a permanent 5 power 5 toughness boost on one of your other creatures, making it a giant thing to win the game with.
Just for 6 mana.
It's really. Even
really
on a rare, you would expect something like Trample, Flying, something like that. But this card, it completely makes up for it in Scavenge. Like, that ability is definitely worth printing this card. And even as a 4-cost 5/5 card, it could be a rare, and you probably wouldn't complain.
The fact is that the Scavenge to power ratio, I'm going to talk that a lot, is really strong on this guy.
Yeah. Alright, Death's Presence. 5 and a green, enchantment, it's a rare. Whenever a creature you control dies, put X +1/+1 counters on a target creature you control, where X is the power of the creature that died. So this is basically like whenever I lose a creature, it scavenges, but it doesn't get exiled. So it's 6 mana, it's a green enchantment, and it deals with creatures dying. This sounds a lot like Feed the Pack to me.
It's very interesting.
Yeah.
For one, I actually kind of forgot this card existed because it spoiled so early on in the spoiler season. But I mean, like, it's dependent on your creatures dying, which means you're asking your opponent to do things, or you're asking for yourself to sacrifice things, and there aren't too many sack outlets in this, although Launch Party is sick with this card.
Yeah, it is.
But the effect is pretty strong, but it does require you to have a team of multiple dudes, which does happen a lot in green, so I could see that being good. It's pretty good with, like, a token strategy, yet again, because if any of your tokens die, you get to move all their power over to your other tokens.
Right.
Which is kind of sweet.
I think this card's pretty interesting because it scales towards, like, okay, so you have a lot of good green early game. You have these efficient creatures, but if they just play some threats that force you to not be able to attack, then this will just break that stall. But that being said, I don't think I'm going to be taking this card that highly. I think I'd rather take just, like, an efficient creature than this card because
this card reminds me of the 7-cost black enchantment, where you can slide that thing down, and if it ever happens, like that one, you need their creatures to die for good things to happen for you, which is always nice if that were to happen, but you don't have, like, this card doesn't give you an ability to sack your own creatures. You just have to, like, be able to have your creatures die profitably for this to do something.
Well, yeah, it's okay, and it's an interesting finisher, but I don't think it's going to be, like, the centerpiece of every deck that picks us up. They're just going to be like, now I have to play the Death's Presence deck. Alright, let's move on to the next one. Drudge Beetle. It's 1 and a green, and it's the classic. It's a common. It's an insect. It's 2/2 for 2, classic bear plus. It also has Scavenge for 6. So I think we're all going to agree that this is just a good card to pick up.
This card is awesome.
Bear plus.
I actually love this card, and, like, this is one of my favorite green commons. This, while it is just a bear plus, it is a very strong bear plus in that the Scavenge ability, the only reason it costs 6 is just it would be absolutely absurd if it cost any less than that. 2 counters of 2 permanent pumps is very, very strong, especially when you've already traded this for one of their other creatures.
Yeah, it's just good. It's pretty much a 2-for-1 at common. It's pretty expensive for a 2-for-1, but by the time you get to it, then you'll be happy to have the counters, and you'll have been happy that your Drudge Beetle did its job in the early game. Yeah. And it just beats the whole, well, by the time I get to the late game, my bear is completely useless. No, it's not. Now it is. So Drudge Beetle is a good card. Druid's Deliverance, 1 and a green, instant common, prevent all combat damage that would be dealt to you this turn, populate. Alright, so I think this card's pretty interesting because it's the same thing as Fog. No, it's not the same thing.
It's very different from Fog.
It's prevent all combat damage that would be dealt to you this turn, so that means that your creatures still deal combat damage, their creatures still deal combat damage, and
the only damage that's prevented is the damage going to your face.
Right.
Your opponent, your creatures, and their creatures are all still taking damage.
Right.
Which could make for some very interesting blocks using this card.
Right.
You mean not blocking.
Exactly.
I mean that, and you can also say you're at a low life, and they're like, okay, if I swing with everything, he has to block this, and then I win, and then you're just like, nope, I play this card, and I'll kill 3 of your creatures.
Exactly.
That being said, populate adding on top of that makes it seem good, but the reason why nobody plays Fog is because it's such a narrow card, or not nobody, but the reason why a lot of people don't like Fog is because it's such a narrow card. There's so few situations where it's just like, now I have Fog, now I can win the game. There are some situations where that happen, and sometimes Fog is the card that saves you and wins you the game, but it's not really worth a card generally. So this card has on top of it Populate, which means that if you have any token, you basically get your value out of this card, and if you can save some life also, then it's basically like, okay, I just gained 4 life and I get to Populate.
I do like it a bit more than Fog, though, because with Fog, you get that bad feeling where they're attacking with a bunch of guys, an alpha swing, trying to kill you off, and you can Fog and take no damage and have no creatures take any damage. So you can't kill off the things that they're swinging in with that, like, let's say they're swinging like a huge team of 1/1s, and you've got some 3/3s, but not enough to block total game to you.
Right.
With this card, you can make sure you take no damage and kill their guys.
Yeah,
just like Andrew said before.
Yeah, I do like this in that sense, but I think that situation isn't going to come up as much as you want for just that card, prevent all combat damage that would be dealt to you this turn, to be relevant. I think it's really just the fact that you have the ability to populate as well.
Yeah.
That makes it a playable card, and I think it's actually good. Like good. I'll probably run this card in my deck.
I will run this in decks that want Populate. I will likely not run it in decks that don't want Populate.
Yeah, I don't think this is going to be seeing play in many Golgari decks.
Yeah, I mean, the only time I'm playing this card is if I can be pretty sure that I'll have some Populate targets.
Yep.
But that being said, I'm going to be playing Selesnya, and that's likely to happen. Anyway, Gatekeeper Vine, 100 green defender. When Gatekeeper Vine enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a basic land or a gate card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library, and it's an O2. Okay. Well, why don't you go ahead and talk about it?
I like this card a lot because most of the times when you have any kind of creature, most of them were like Civic Wayfinder or Borderland Ranger. It helps you get a land, but this one also gets you the gate cards. If you have any gate in your deck that you need to be splashing for, this guy on turn 2 gets you the color you need. The gate already comes into play tapped, but this one goes into your hand. It doesn't even matter.
Yeah.
It goes into your hand, but still, I think it's getting the early color that you need, especially if you're trying to not be in mostly green or just in one of the green guilds. If you're trying to do 3 colors or more, if you're ambitious, then this guy's going to help you a lot, especially because he's also a defender and the other guy works with defenders.
Yeah, there's some things that want gates, there's some things that want defender. This guy just fixes your land. I think that you're always going to be able to figure out a situation where you want it. I mean, people played Traveler's Amulet like it was their job, and that was 1 mana and 1 to sacrifice it. So it's basically the same thing. It's basically 2 mana to just go look for your land. You get a 0/2 here, and you can find a gate instead of a basic land. So
yeah, I think this guy's going to see a probably even just in regular guild deck, you don't even have to be more than 2 colors to play this card very profitably.
Yeah, you're done. I mean, if you have this card, you're not gonna play like 5 of them, but you're definitely
Unless you're 5 color.
Unless you're 5 color, in which case you'll play 16 of them if you can. That would be a very bad 5 color deck.
Yeah,
anyway,
I would play 16, maybe 15 and 14.
Okay. Giant Growth. We all know what Giant Growth is. It's green, instant. Target creature gets +3/+3 until end of turn. I like Giant Growth. It's good.
Always good.
I mean,
it's very good.
It's just a good pump spell. The fact that it only costs 1 means that you can still do it and still do something on your turn, which is awesome. So we like Giant Growth. It's just going to go in the same spot as your combat tricks. Do we think it's the best combat trick so far in this set?
Probably.
Like,
the only other one that could possibly be better is the +1/+0 for Strike Lifelink.
I don't think that's
I don't think it's
nearly
better.
as good.
No, it's
+3/+3 is
situationally.
so good.
The only thing that makes it situational is the lifelink part.
Right.
If you need to gain the life,
guess.
that's the only thing that makes it somewhat better. But I think this one's going to be consistently better.
Yes.
Alright, Gobbling Ooze. 4 and a green. It's an uncommon for a 3/3. It has green, sacrifice another creature, put a +1/+1 counter on Gobbling Ooze. For some reason, they felt the need to put in sacrifice another creature. I don't know why anybody would be upset if you sacrificed your own Gobbling Ooze. So I don't know why they put that another keyword on that.
For the same reason, on the white enchantment, you can't enchant a land even though they have to pay for its converted mana cost, which is 0 for a land. It says enchant non-land permanent.
That is...
I think it's hilarious.
Also
That's weird.
Interesting.
But
yeah, anyway, I think this card's actually really good. It's a 5 cost, and it can get bigger, and it turns off all the removal, or it just basically makes them target this guy. He can pretty easily get out of Annihilating Fire range, and he's just going to be awesome when you're just like, okay, looking at the board, you have 6 mana, and then you have some random dude who you can scavenge, and you're like, oh, hey, if I scavenge that, then I can get more power, and then...
And if you have this with Death's Presence, then you're very happy.
yeah, I was just about to say, this is what I want with Death's Presence.
Yeah, I mean, live the dream. Also, I don't remember if we were talking about it, but Trader's Instinct would work well with this card, but it's not really in the right colors. I was thinking of a card like, how do I abuse Trader's Instinct? Oh yeah, now there's Gobbling Ooze.
Thinking about it the other way, this is one of those very few sacrifice outlets that if your opponent Trader's Instincts, they can't sack it to itself.
That's true. Maybe that's why they put it there, because they didn't want people to just abuse it. That would be so good.
That'd be so annoying if
but then even so, they still have to have their green mana.
Yeah. It would be so unfortunate if you Trader's Instincts my giant Gobbling Ooze. It now also has +2/+0 because Trader's Instincts is Trader's Instincts, and then you smack me in the face, and then I no longer have my big dude, and I always hate that feeling.
Yeah, that's like really bad for you. All right.
It was like Active Treason Fling back in the day.
Oh, man.
Oh god.
All right, Golgari Decoy, 3 and a green, uncommon. All creatures able to block Golgari Decoy do so. Scavenge 3 green.
And it's a 2/2.
And it is a 2/2. This card's good.
I've
because-
always liked
Prized Unicorn.
I've always liked the Taunting Elf type cards.
Right, so you can get in with all your guys, trade with one of their bears, and then scavenge it. So whenever you can do like 3 different things with one card, and it only costs 4, it's not like it's a 6 mana card. It's just, you're going to want to play this card in your deck.
This is a better Prized Unicorn. For anyone who remembers Prized Unicorn from, was it M10 or M11? I think it was M10, but I'm not sure.
I think it was M11.
It may have been M11. It was 3. It was what? 3 and green for a 2/2. Do the exact same thing as this, except without scavenge.
Right.
And I'd still play it. It was great. It let me get all my guys in, and now he does more.
Yeah, this guy is...
He's a Unicorn plus.
He's a win condition.
Unicorn plus.
He's a win condition. If you have lethal on board, except for him, you suddenly have lethal on board.
Right.
Because everything else has to get in. And if, for whatever reason, you can pump this guy, if you have other scavenge put on this guy, then you're going to start killing off multiples of his dudes.
Yeah, and then you can put them in a position where like they can't do anything to win the game. They're like, all right, top deck, damn it, this is a 1/1. I can't do anything. Top deck, hey, this is my really awesome utility creature. Oh, wait, no, I die.
Is there any way to give this Death Touch? Is there any card in this set that gives Death Touch? Because I really want this to have Death Touch.
Yeah, I don't
think
know
so.
if
But
there
there is
God.
ethereal armor in multiples on this guy.
That's true.
I don't know.
Ooh, and First Strike with him is good.
Yeah.
When he is pumped up, First Strike is great.
Yeah, but I mean that's just like, all right, I'm gonna play my scavenge card, my ethereal armor, and this, and then they're like, kill it, and you're just
sad face.
Even
Ultimate
worse than that, exile it.
Yeah, that'd be bad.
What if you also give it Hexproof?
If they trust Danny's judgment or whatever.
Yeah. All right.
That'd be the worst.
Horncaller's Chant, 7 and a green. Put a 4/4 green rhino creature with trample onto the battlefield, then populate. I think it's doing a lot, but I think it's for a little bit too much to really want to play this card, unless you have all of those ramp dudes.
I mean, I like it as just like a curve topper for the populate deck. This is the highest amount of cost you'll play. You will not play more than one of this. Like, I repeat, you don't want to play more than one of this. You really don't want more than one 8-drop in your deck.
My starting hand of
Unless
forest, plains, Horncaller's Chant is gonna win me a lot of games.
Except when you die before turn 8.
You die before turn 6.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's just a good... Like, if you get to play it, if you can stall the game to that point with blocking with all your tokens, you get to go, here's a rhino, and another little rhino. Fuzzy rhino, funny rhino, llama duck.
I I don't know.
You've heard the line of the song, right?
Yeah.
Sure,
But
whatever.
this
Pretend I
is,
have.
this is the thing that makes you want to play the other the defenders in green. The green defenders are going to stall you, they're going to ramp you, and they're going to get you up to the sky.
Well, I don't know if they're going to do all of that, but maybe they will.
They'll do some of the things.
Yeah. All right. The next card is, I think, pretty sweet. It's 2 green for a 3/3 trample, and it's a common, which is very obvious based on its cost, and it's 5 green for scavenge. So based on the other card was what, 2 green for a 5/5, and this one's a 3/3 trample, and its scavenge cost was also cheaper, even though it was a 5/5. But this card's definitely really good because
It's just the little brother of Deadbridge Goliath.
And it's a lizard.
and it also has trample.
Right.
And it's a lizard.
It's just as cute.
It would be awesome putting 5 counters on this thing.
I do actually. That's actually a very good point. It is not only a card that can scavenge; it's a card that enjoys being scavenged upon.
Yeah.
It likes having counters on it, and when it dies, it likes giving its counters away. It fulfills both purposes that you want in a scavenge deck.
It's also just a really strong card. I feel like a 4-cost 3/3 trample was still very playable.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Let alone the fact that this has a scavenge. No matter what the cost is, it happens to be 7, but it's still fantastic.
It also is worth noting that it's 2 green, so it's not quite as easy to cast as a 3 and a green card, but
Yes.
you probably won't have too much trouble casting it in most decks.
Mm-hmm.
Alright, next card, Mana Bloom, X green, it's a rare enchantment. Mana Bloom enters the battlefield with X charge counters on it. Remove a charge counter from Mana Bloom, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool, activate this ability only once each turn. At the beginning of your upkeep, if it has no charge counters on it, return it to your hand.
It's weird.
I have
No thank you.
I honestly just don't like it. I think it's a trap.
I don't know how to evaluate this because it's a good play if you have no good plays. But then again, you don't want to be running a deck where you need something to do.
Is it
when you
really
have no
that
plays.
good of a play? Like,
Because
Spear
it
of the
could
Suns
give you
for
a good
4
place.
mana. For 4 mana.
It is a single ramp spell that after you used it a few times requires you to invest mana into it again.
Yeah, I don't like
I'd
this card
rather
at all.
just play like a rampant growth if that was in this format.
Well, I'd rather just play the defender dude who gets me a land.
I mean,
I
it
agree with
doesn't
that.
give you the extra mana immediately.
I know, but this doesn't give you mana immediately.
I disagree.
You have to pay it to
Yeah,
put
you
Gives
it
you
have
a
in.
to
different
pay
color.
for it.
Gives you a different color immediately.
That's true.
So
I don't
does
know.
the defender.
But I don't want to argue for this card. I don't think it's strong. Like in
Yeah,
any way.
it doesn't do anything. Like, for your rare, you're just not happy when you open this card. Alright, Oak Street Innkeeper, 2 and a green. As long as it's not your turn, tapped creatures you control have hexproof.
Oh, I read that wrong the first time. I
It's
thought
a
it was as
1/2.
long as it's your turn.
Okay.
I
Well,
didn't see the not. That changes everything.
I just don't think that this creature's good at all.
Turns off everything that they want to do to you. Enchantment-wise, turns off all sorceries.
It's a 3 mana
interesting.
1/2. You're really gonna need to convince me to play it. And not only does this not work for instant speed removal, but it also doesn't work if I can't attack. Like if you just play a death touch creature, then I'm just like, oh well, that plan's blown. So this card requires other cards to make it even remotely useful. Since it's a 1/2, it's not a relevant body at all. And it also is only good in some random situations. It's just not what I want to be doing on turn 3. I want to be playing a 3/3.
I agree.
Yeah. Let's move on. This card is not good.
Well, alright. I mean, it's not great, but Rubbleback Rhino is a 5-cost 3/4 hexproof. And I think hexproof is like one of those abilities that it could be really sweet, especially since you have a lot of good pump spells and you have scavenge. So, I mean, you make this guy a 5/6, and all of a sudden they're like, what am I going to do against a 5/6 hexproof? Like, how am I going to beat that?
You just don't.
Yeah, well, you don't beat it. So, I mean, but as a 3/4, its body isn't too relevant. They're playing 3/3s on turn 3 or even turn 2.
Having 4 in the back is very relevant against all the 3/3s in this format.
Yeah,
And
but there's also a ton of pumps, so I don't know. I mean, it's good, but it's not like it's impossible to kill. I don't think I'll be running that many of these. I'll maybe have like 1 in my deck that I have a lot of pump or
I will
scavenge.
be actively seeking these out for a scavenge deck. Putting the counters on something that can't be targeted by your opponent's stuff seems like a very
I
good
think
idea.
it's also good in the Celestia deck with Ethereal Armor and the Knightly Valor on this guy.
Yeah.
Knightly
if I want-
Valor on this guy seems really nice.
If I want to run the stupid enchantment deck, this is the guy I want to put some enchantments on.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. But he has 5 mana, so maybe the enchantment deck's a little faster.
He's a
Although
good
maybe
finisher.
it's a slow enchantment deck. I don't know. It's okay. You can take it, but you're not going to be first picking this card pretty much ever. All right. Next card. It's uncommon. 1 in a green Savage Surge. It's an instant. Target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. Untap that creature. So, I mean, the card that I immediately think of when I see this is Spidery Grasp. It doesn't give reach. It doesn't give +0/+2, and it costs 1 mana less. So I think it's pretty good. I think it'll be a nice combat trick. You're tapped out. You're not really tapped out. And then even if they have to play around it, then they're just like,
Then
what?
it still gives you value at that point
Yeah.
if they play around it.
I love this card. It's good.
I think it's phenomenal.
Any of the pumps like this that also untap your creature and just blow out your opponent. I love things like this because in the early days of the format, so many people aren't going to be playing around it, and it's going to make you feel so good when you get to blow someone out with this.
Right, and yeah, and as we mentioned, just the fact that they have to play around it gives you a lot of value, and it really just changes the format when you have a type of spell like this where they all of a sudden they're just like, uh-oh. All right, next card, another uncommon, 3 in a green, sorcery, I said uncommon. Search your library for up to 3 basic lands, reveal them, put them into your hand, then shuffle your library.
Seek the Horizon.
Yeah, it's Seek the Horizon. I don't really,
5-color!
yeah, 5-color deck, you want this.
But other than that, honestly, it's weird.
Yeah,
I'd rather
I
just
mean-
be playing... I'd rather just be
Okay.
paying 2 mana less to get a 0/2 body and just find 1 land.
Yeah, I would rather do that. but
One of
if-
which could be a gate.
It
If
could
you have
be a
no
gate.
if you have no options here and you really need to run the 3-color deck, then I could definitely see somebody running this card. It's like, I mean, you didn't want to be running Gem of Becoming, but this card's a lot better than that. I think.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Just a lot better. All
Didn't
right.
Gem Becoming... Wait, did Gem Becoming need mana
Yeah,
and
you-
tap?
you-
right?
Yeah, it's
3
3 to play, 3 to activate.
Oh, so
Yeah.
it's 6 mana to find 3 specific lands.
Yeah,
Right.
as opposed to this one where it's 4 mana and you can find 3 of whatever you want. You can find like 3 forests if you want to cast your Horncaller's Chant or whatever. All right, next card. Slime Molding. X green. It's an uncommon. Put an XX green ooze creature token onto the battlefield. It's going to be really good in those populate decks for sure.
Oh my god.
Because
it's
you can
insane
scale
populate.
it. I mean, you can scale it to however much you want. The problem is you're never getting a creature that's worth it. But if you can ever populate it, then you're happy. So I think it'll be picked pretty decently because you can pretty easily jump into that populate deck. And I don't know how many people are going to want to be in the populate deck. So
Yeah, I like this card a lot because he's not always, but he's usually going to be the size you need him to be. You don't always have to tap out for this guy if you have another relevant spell, which is good because this guy's as large as you need him to be. If you're playing against the Centaur tribal deck, then you cast this guy for 5 mana, and now he's a 4/4, and now they're just in Sad Town.
Right, but I mean,
Yep.
you can't really cast this creature until turn 3 at all, and you can't even for 3 mana, and you can't really cast it for 3 because then by the time you're playing a 3 mana 2/2, you're a little bit unhappy. But even a 4 mana 3/3 is fine, especially since it's a token and you can populate it. So the reason why it's in the format is because it's a token.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
If you play it for 5 mana, so green and 4, you get a 4/4, which I believe is bigger than every other token produced at 5 mana or lower.
Yeah, I think
Unless the land token, you count Grove of the Guardian token.
Yeah.
It,
Well,
it takes 5 to activate.
Yeah.
I don't count that, but
I don't count it,
anyway,
because you also need 2 creatures.
it's
Those
also
doesn't require
a
creatures.
rare. So
Yeah.
anyway, Stonefair Crocodile, 2 in a green. It's common. It's a 3/2, and its ability reads 2 in a black. Stonefair Crocodile gains lifelink until end of turn. Yeah, this card's good. It's going to be played in. You're going to take it in any of your Golgari decks. It's a little bit overcosted for the lifelink, but it's still a 3-cost 3/2, so it's awesome. And the lifelink can be really, really relevant.
It's
lot.
a non-flying worse Arctic Aven that's in Golgari instead of Azurius.
So basically the
Sure.
same thing.
Yeah.
But just comparing it to something like Selesnya Sentry before, that elephant that was 3 mana 3/2 that had the 6 mana to regenerate it.
Yeah.
This is probably the 3 mana 3/2 I like more, just because its ability is relevant a little bit more when you play it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I definitely like this one so much more.
I think the ability is a little bit more relevant, but I don't think that I like it an extreme amount more.
I mean, like, it's
Right.
not a card I'm actively seeking out. Oh, I want to get all of these,
Well,
but it's a card I'll run.
It is definitely a card that I'm seeking out because I want to run all of the 3 mana 3 power creatures. So
Well, that is what you
Also,
do.
if you put any kind of pump on in the lifelink, is just ridiculously fun.
yeah.
Now for a card that I'm actively seeking out.
Tower Indrik, 3 green. It's a common. Reach 2/4. he had a cousin, and his cousin was a spider, and his name was Giant Spider. And then this guy just decided to come into town, and now everybody is running away from this horse, apparently.
It's a giant horse giraffe man thing.
It says beast.
It says beast, but it's definitely a horse.
It's an Indrik.
What is an Indrik?
Something
It's
on
probably
Ravnica
a
that's a
type of beast.
giant horse thing.
Okay, it's a giant horse thing.
It chases its airborne prey relentlessly, heedless
This is-
to what
no.
pulverizes beneath its hooves.
This is not the flavor text reading session that
We should do a
you
flavor
expect.
text reading session.
God, now we need to do 4 set reviews. We need to do the text set review, the art set review, the actual set review, and the flavor text set review. But yeah, this card's good. You really, really want these. They're just very, very good, especially since green doesn't have any removal. And
And he turns
It's
off
a-
your opponent's Concordia pick.
so the only
All their
remo-
other flyers too.
the only
most
removal
likely.
spell in green is just the aerial predation, right?
I believe so.
All right,
But
well,
green tends to try and play its pump as
yeah,
removal.
right. You
And we
usually-
haven't seen any multicolored things that involve green yet as well.
Oh yeah, that's true. Okay. Urban Burgeoning. Green. Enchant land. Enchanted land has untapped this land during each other player's untap step. No thank you. Never
Nope.
gonna be playing
I think this
card.
can only be played if you have Underworld connections on the same land.
Yes.
That
That is a rare.
That
Right.
is dumb.
Honestly,
so,
I would say just sweep this away.
yeah,
Unless you want to go
no.
retarded blue-green mill and have the mill land on something. And
No, this
no,
card,
that's their land. Never mind.
This card's
is
yeah,
bad.
This card's
that's
really
their
bad.
land. Don't play it, please.
Put
Yeah.
this on the white one that prevents damage if you want to be gimmicky.
All right, Wild Beast Smash. That's not even gimmicky. They can't do damage to you on your turn. Okay,
Let me fire
Wild
you.
Beastmaster, 2 and a green for a rare. Whenever Wild Beastmaster attacks, each other creature you control gets +X until end of turn. Where X is Wild Beastmaster's power, it's 1/1. I think I don't know, maybe these two are gonna think that it's a lot better than I do. I think it's an okay card, and it's super, super awesome if you can get pumped, but I mean, I'm not rating cards based on the fact that if they have pump, they're awesome. So I like this card, I think it's good, but it's not like, oh my god, I have to first pick this card every time.
I actually agree. You do not want to first pick this card every time. The only time you would pick this and pack one, pick one is if the rest of your pack's a little weak, you don't see too much removal, and you feel like going into a deck that works very well with this, because to make this card work, you need to focus on it. You need to get the pump, and honestly, this could go in that enchantment deck we've been talking about. Just slap some ethereal armors on this guy, go to town.
Yeah,
But
that's not the kind of deck that I want to be playing. I just don't think it's.
I like this guy because I view him as a 3-mana 1/1 battle cry.
Right,
Which
that-
is interesting. And
I think that's terrible.
It only gets better though. Like it's better than battle cry because it also pumps the back, and it can pump for more than one.
Right,
But the only
if
issue
I-
is when you swing in with a 1/1, it's probably going to die.
Right, so this basically says, okay, I'll add 1 power to 2 your creatures, so there's so many more things that I'd rather play.
However, if you are in a green deck that has a bunch of scavenge, I would consider this.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that it's unplayable, but I'm saying that it's not like a card that I'm actively looking to open.
It's not, oh my god, unbelievable, this is ridiculous. It's okay. And it could be very good.
Yeah. Anyway, next card, World Spineworm. 8 green, green, green. So already it's just completely irrelevant for limited. But it's a mythic rare. It has trample. When World Spineworm dies, put 3 5/5 green worm creature tokens with trample onto the battlefield. It says when it dies, when it goes into the graveyard from anywhere, shuffle it into your library, and it's a 15/15. So obviously, if you land this guy in limited, you're gonna win the game, unless they
you land this
exile
guy
it.
limited.
But it's just like it's not even worth playing, really.
It's just too much mana, but I really want to play it. But it's too much mana. But I'm going to guarantee that I will hear some story about someone playing against their opponent who had a guild feud out.
No, you're not going to hear this
And their
story.
opponent flipped a World Spineworm off of it, and they flipped like some random guild mage, and then proceeded to lose.
Yeah, no, that
And it's
story
going to
is
be ridiculous.
I think I would actually run this card if it was my pack one, pick one, and then try to build the ramp around it. I think it's very easily done with the common ramp we've seen in green.
With the defender,
What?
yes.
Yeah,
Right.
there's one ramp creature. What if you don't see that many of that creature?
Then I'm still not mad. I mean, there's
Yeah, you are, because then you drew a dead card every single, like,
I mean, you don't have to have it be your only thing you're trying to ramp into. You could build like a stally ramp deck, and it's
I just
doable.
don't think that there's enough ramp. There's one creature in the entire
There's
set
a
that
lot
ramp.
more ramp than just the monocolored green.
Okay.
Key runes exist.
Yeah, there are key runes. So, I don't know. You're gonna. I mean, like even
I think
ramping.
I think it'd be easy to build around if that was what you were focusing on the entire draft.
I don't think that it's that easy.
Personally, if I open it, pack one, pick one in a draft, I'm gonna make the wrong decision and try and build around it and try and play it.
Yeah.
What I would suggest is try and avoid a trap like this. Let someone else take this and try and do the ridiculous thing while you make a consistent good deck using some sort of removal or evasive creature or some other bomb if you can find one.
Yeah, there's no way I'll ever be casting this card in limited. Maybe one of the other two will, but I definitely won't.
I'm gonna be trying.
Alright, so that's it for the green review. I hope you guys enjoyed. Have a nice day. Bye.
Garub signing off.
Adios.